What it up, Pete?
Today we're going to look at two true stories. And the theme of today is ghosts that stalk children. It often seems that children have a special connection with spirits. They are more in tune, and you will often see that babies will look off in the distance as if they're following something, but it's something that you cannot see. Or maybe your child waves to someone, but you look and no one is there. January 2021, in Las Vegas, Nevada. Parents Ryan and Mackenzie live in a very isolated house. This is Mackenzie. I don't have a picture of Ryan though. And in the night, they will hear their daughter say, "Go away," while she is in her room by herself. Mackenzie is like, no, I am going to set up a camera. No one has broken into her house. What is my daughter talking about? 3 days go by and nothing unusual happens. But on the 4th, this is what she captured. Story number 2, Oxford, Michigan. 2019, we have Becky Moss and her husband. They always keep a very close eye on their baby. They have a baby monitor that they watch religiously. And one night, an orb floated onto the screen. They noticed that their baby's legs were flailing around. Then they realized that her legs were being pulled and tugged. So Becky immediately pulls out her phone and starts filming. So by the way, my first YouTube video is almost done. I wish I could cover this story on TikTok, but I don't want to spoil it for any of you guys. Just know that it is freaky. This is the story of Chris Lemons. And by the way, you're about to see all of the real footage. Chris is a saturation diver. Divers will spend a month at a time in something called a bell. From the bell, they throw on their suits and they jump out to the bottom of the ocean. They are also attached with a line called an umbilical, and this line provides them with gas, electricity, and communication with the ship overhead.
So this is the moment of truth when we get on board, when we check the board to see who we're going to be in sat with.
Just a bar for every day.
A bar for every day.
I've only started just to check him out, yeah.
This is Duncan. He is the bellman, so he's going to go underwater with Chris, but he is going to stay on the bell and make sure everything runs smoothly. Dave, on the other hand, is Sat Diver 2. He is going to be going underwater with Chris. So Duncan throws on their gear, then they climb out the bottom of the bell onto a platform. It is a metal grate and they are standing just above the abyss in pitch dark ocean. And they are about to float down to the seabed. You gotta understand, when you are floating down there, it is terrifying. You have no idea where you're gonna land. You have no idea what creatures are down there. By the way, saturation divers get attacked all the time. You are basically in space. So here is the footage of their descent. Now that they are on the ocean floor, they make their way to a structure called a manifold. But unfortunately, on the surface, things start to go wrong.
We are losing position.
All computers in the ship fail. This sends the vessel drifting through the ocean. Remember, these divers are hooked to the ship with an umbilical. If they don't get back in the bell, they are going to be dragged through the ocean floor. So the captain says, "Get back in the bell right now." And Chris and Dave start climbing over the structure. They have to climb their umbilicals back into the bell. As Dave is climbing, he turns around, and that's when he notices that Chris is absolutely stuck. His umbilical has been completely wedged in the structure. Chris is literally the anchor of the ship. Every bit of tension is on him. And then you start to hear the sounds of steel that is about to pop. umbilical snaps, instantly cutting off his oxygen, electricity, and communication with the ship. The only thing Chris has left is a bailout tank that can only last for 6 minutes. Dave tried to go back for Chris, but he had no more length on his umbilical. He watched in slow motion as Chris slowly faded away in the darkness.
Normally you're connected to the bell by your umbilical, but he's got no umbilical. The bell isn't anywhere near him. He's got no options at all.
At this point, the ship drifts farther and farther away. With the computers down, the only option they have to control the ship is these 4 handles. They are thrusters and they are not meant to be used in weather like this. But thankfully, eventually the computers turn back on. This is when they send an underwater drone with a live feed to find Chris's location. By this time, it had been over 20 minutes. Here is the real footage from this drone. Chris is still alive, but just barely. He waves to the camera, then he starts to twitch, and then he goes still. The crew kicks it into high gear and they send Dave down to rescue Chris.
I wasn't surprised by what I saw. I knew that it was going to be hard to get back to the bell. The weight of Chris was very heavy. The boat was moving up and down, but I'm there to do my job and do what I'm told to do.
By this point, Chris had been without his umbilical for 36 minutes. He was no longer breathing and the crew performed CPR. And miraculously, he came back. Not only that, but the crew were shocked to find that he was totally okay. They would ask him how he was feeling and he would give them a thumbs up. The crew were ecstatic, confused, frustrated, every emotion you could think of. And it was truly a miracle that he was okay.
The only time I ever felt serious, I was just halfway through taking his pulse. And he just kind of looked over at me and said, "Stuart, you know it's okay." And I said, "Yeah, I know you're okay, yeah." He said, No, it's okay. I was just drifting off to sleep, you know. I was kind of sad for a bit, but then I was cold and I got a bit numb, but it was like falling asleep. It's not that bad. Anything really got emotional for me in that point was it kind of hit home that he had basically he decided he was going to die. He's trying to tell me that okay, and that really got to me.
This recording was designed to absolutely terrify the enemy. During the Vietnam War, this would echo through the forest. It was used as psychological warfare to scare people into submission. But it wouldn't only terrorize the enemy, it would terrorize everyone. It was played from boats, helicopters, and deep within the forest. The US military would set up these giant speakers everywhere. The recording starts off with Buddhist funeral music, but then it shifts to a man that is clearly in anguish. The man comes with a warning to everyone. That warning is, surrender now or else end up like me. By the way, I just want to say this is super messed up. It's definitely really sad, but yeah, here's the recording. Oh, and it would also terrify the villages all around, because you gotta think these are really superstitious people. So when they heard this, I mean, it was terrifying.
về để nói cho các bạn biết rằng con đã chết. Địa ngục, cái chết thật là oan uổng, thật là vô nghĩa.
Stay the fuck away from my family, you demon.
You're about to witness some terrifying footage. This is from Ghost of Caramel, Maine, and when he was young, his mother told him that he was cursed with spirit attachments. If you guys haven't seen my previous videos, this is Kent, but this activity doesn't only apply to him, it applies to his whole family. They are all constantly suffering. Kent turns off his lights, sets up his camera, and lays in bed. And now the voices start begging for his help. These voices are not limited to something just asking for help. Sometimes he encounters something that is more powerful and strange, something that growls and screeches as he walks in the room.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Can you believe that? It is clearly something that is hissing. I just want to throw this in there that Kent is very brave, but the one thing he does not like is when it messes with his family.
Nowhere the car explodes and is completely engulfed in flames. They receive some burns, but barely made it out of the car alive.
I just got done mentioning someone being the Antichrist, and not even 5 minutes later, the car blew up and the dash went in our face.
What caused it to blow up?
We don't know. The fire department couldn't even find out.
This isn't the only incident that Kent's brother would have. I can't show you the pictures of the others because it is a lot more graphic, but the wheel of his car was yanked and he was pulled off the road. And he took a picture at the accident and he captured this. 2 glowing eyes. Now, when these things mess with his family, sometimes Kent loses his cool.
Stay the fuck away from my family, you demon. Go back to hell where you belong.
Now, one of the craziest parts of the story comes from his friend Debbie Hibbard. They met in high school and they had a crush on each other. But unfortunately, Debbie would die to a murder suicide by her own family. And by the way, this would not only happen to Debbie, this would happen to one of Kent's teachers. 2 murder suicides of people that became close to Kent. I could talk about this forever because the story gets really deep and it's crazy, but in the EVPs you can hear Debbie talking to Kent. Now, I've covered this before, but I know some of y'all have not seen it, so I wanted to show it one more time because it is crazy. Also, not to mention, Kent has a horrific reoccurring nightmare. In this nightmare, he's trapped in a house with a demon. This demon is disguised as an old lady, and it has trapped souls everywhere. In the floors, you can hear anguish. And who is there? Debbie. The strangest part about this dream is that this place feels extremely familiar to Kent. He knows that he has been there before, even though it's just in his dream. Here's an EVP of Debbie. Now, it took Kent a long time to share this footage because, as he would say, it is very personal to him. The question is that really Debbie? Or is that something pretending? I say that because it's very obvious that whatever is after him is definitely evil. And I assume that it would know how to play his emotions. Now, I'll leave y'all with some of the most terrifying encounters that Kent has. It is with a man, or whatever it is that he calls Shadow Dude. Shadow Dude has the ability to be seen by the naked human eye, and it loves to scare Kent every time he turns a corner. I know this sounds crazy, but I definitely don't think it's fake. There are a ton of clips of this. I'm just going to show 2.
What the hell is that noise? Son of a bitch! The EVP sound. Oh my!
Warning, because this is a very disturbing exorcism video. And one of the first exorcisms ever recorded. Our story starts with Nancy and Maurice. They are a married couple that is living in Massachusetts. They have a small farm and a beautiful family. However, the gentle and quiet farmer that Maurice was would not last.
What happened to my children? what they went through during this, what we all went through.
Maurice's behavior rapidly changed. His facial expression would switch, and he would become violent with not only Nancy, but with her children. Not only that, but blood dripped from his eyes. Crosses were being carved in his back, and objects were being thrown about the rooms. With nowhere to turn, they reach out to Ed and Lorraine Warren. From here, they perform an exorcism. Giving you your warning right now because this tape is pretty hard to watch. It's not just creepy, it is also very nauseating. The look in Maurice's eyes makes you sick. The priest is chanting and Maurice is kind of rolling around, and suddenly he blinks 3 times, which is considered an insult to the Trinity. Then his face switches. His eyes form slits, the side of his face begins to bubble, and a crack forms on his temple. From there, blood drips down his cheek. The priest would ask, "Who are you?" Maurice answered, "I am who I am, the legion of evil here to corrupt humanity." And then his eyes rolled into his head and he collapsed. After this exorcism, Maurice would return to normal for 2 years. But after those 2 years, things got even worse. The evil came back in full force and with a vengeance. No one was safe, and Maurice was about to do something terrifying. He grabbed a shotgun and went down into the basement and waited for Nancy to get home. When she did, he ran up the stairs and charged her. She ran out the front door, but Maurice took aim and this blow off her arm. He grabbed her by the leg and dragged her inside, sitting her down on a chair. From there, he said, "You will never forget this." Pointed the shotgun at himself, and only one word would come out of Nancy's mouth.
The only thing that I could say when he did it was amen.
This monkey is about to go to space. So, take a seat and get ready because this story is crazy. And it takes place in 1961. We of course had a space race going on, so we were very eager to send a human up to the heavens. And to make sure that a human would survive this rocket and survive in space, we needed a candidate. So we were like, what better option than a monkey? But we must find the perfect monkey. One who is smart, calm, cool, and collected, with mental fortitude and strength.
Ham is but one of several chimps to undergo pre-flight training. By hitting certain levers when lights flash on, the chimp earns a banana-flavored pellet as a reward.
After carefully examining all of the chimps, they decide to go with Ham's. That's because they would say he just had a good attitude and he was also very smart. He was just a happy-go-lucky guy, and they knew that he could handle this. After months of relentless training, Hams was ready. The big day was arriving. They put Hams inside of his custom capsule and screwed it shut. They then loaded him inside of the rocket. As anxiety rose and the room became quiet, they began the countdown. The only person who seemed unconcerned was Hams. It's definitely because he had no idea what was going on. But that's just who Hams is. He does not care. He's a happy guy. The rocket engines began to roar and Hams began his journey to space. On his way up, Hams would feel 16 Gs of force. To put that in perspective, here's what 9 Gs looks like.
Breathe. Squeeze your legs, squeeze your butt. Hey.
At the top, he experienced weightlessness for 6 minutes, and then he plummeted back down to Earth. He would land over 100 miles away from his expected location. He was in the middle of the ocean, so they had to go retrieve him. Once they did, they set him down on a boat. And the last thing to do was check and see if Hams is still alive.
They can see him now, but still, Ham has done it. He is safe and well, a hero of space, happy to be back among friends. A completely contented chimp, he has moved man closer than ever before to his age-old dream of traveling the heavens.
Hams has done it, and he performed all of his trained operations perfectly. God bless Habs, the legend of Habs. Let's give a salute for Habs. By the way, guys, this is definitely not cool to do to a monkey. But we can be happy that nothing happened to Hams, and he looks happy. But also, it's messed up. You shouldn't do that. And that is how we figured out that, yes, indeed, it is safe to bring a human into space.
None of this would have been possible had it not been for Jim Jones.
I got a hell of a lot of weapons to fight. I got my claws, I got compasses, I got guns, I got dynamite. I got a hell of a lot to fight. I'll fight.
Warning, a million times over, because this episode is going to be disturbing. This is the story of Jonestown. Jones was extremely influential in the States. He didn't just preach, he wanted to take on your battles and fight them for you. He fought for equality in times where racial tension was very high. And people absolutely loved him. He had a huge family with 9 children and 1 African-American adopted son.
I love him. I also hate him.
So Jim took his following and built a huge settlement in Guyana in the middle of a forest. The goal was to create a perfect world, a place where people were free, they worshipped, they were happy. But very quickly, things would turn into unimaginable horrors. Over 1,000 people settled in Jonestown. And if you traveled there, you would just see forest for miles and miles and miles. It is in the middle of nowhere.
But that's a gentle guy.
There was an amazing camaraderie that everyone felt. This huge sense of accomplishment and community and freedom. They were on top of the world in a way that they had never experienced before. And then Jim Jones fell under investigation. This is where things turned bad. Jim wouldn't sleep because he would be constantly taking amphetamines. And day and night his voice would be rambling over the speakers.
You punk! You got punk! You've caused us trouble week after week, month after month. Got my blood pressure boiling.
He became extremely paranoid, and everyone was forced into intense labor for over 12 hours a day. By now, many of the cult members are so blinded by their faith in Jones that they turn on their family members. And Jones relishes the bloodlust.
A pair of scissors and run like little garbage.
So, California Congressman Leo Ryan decides that he needs to investigate the cult. So he grabs a crew with cameras and they pay the cult a visit. And at first, everything looked fine. Everyone's like, this is the happiest I've ever been. And he's like, oh, I was wrong.
I'm very happy here. It's the best place I've ever been.
The few conversations I've had with some of the folks here already this evening, that whatever the comments are, there are some people here who believe that this is the best thing that ever happened to them in their whole life.
Everything goes great and the next day rolls around. And then Congressman receives a note. One of the members wrote this note and it said, help us get out of Jonestown. So then they confront Jim.
Last night, someone came and passed me this note.
If Jonestown's such a bad place, why does he want to leave his son here?
Doesn't it concern you, though, that this man, for whatever reason, one of the people in your group...
People play games, friend.
And then even more people start to come forward.
So go back home. And where's home? U.S.
So the crew is gathering people that want to leave, and suddenly one of the members pulls out a knife. He lunges at the crew, but fortunately none of them were hurt. And at this point they're like, we are about to... So they grab some of the cult members and they all run back to the runway where their plane is. But a tractor with a trailer pulls up, and the trailer is filled with men holding guns. Warning, because I'm about to show you some crazy footage. Only a handful escaped into the jungle, and unfortunately the congressman was killed. The word spreads back to Jonestown, and now they initiate their mass suicide. Jim knows that authorities will be coming back in soon, so it is his plan to make sure that everyone dies. They fill this metal tub with purple Powerade and cyanide. They turn on some music, and everyone gathers around. Everyone grabs their cups. For those that will not drink the cyanide, there are needles for injection. No one will come out unscathed. Not the men, not the women, not the children, not the babies, no one. And while some are excited for this plan, others are crying and screaming. And there is a recording of this whole thing. It's an audio recording, and I'm going to show you some clips. By the way, around this bucket, there are bodies everywhere. Obviously, I zoomed into the bucket.
Bring it here so the adults can begin. Beg you, don't fail to follow my advice. You'll be sorry. You'll be sorry. That we do it and that they do it. Just trust you. You have to step across. As we were saying, it sure wasn't.
Everyone begins to drink the Kool-Aid, and the adults make sure that their kids drink the Kool-Aid. And Jones urges people on and tells them not to worry, it's going to be okay, you are meant for this. And if you don't, they will get you. During this, his wife would actually start begging him to stop, and some would come forward to tell Jones, please, not the kids. But regardless, even if you decided not to drink the Kool-Aid, they would force you to. This recording is about an hour long, and at the end, everything goes silent. And all you can hear is the ghostly music echo into the jungle as thousands of bodies lay still. And just above the piles of bodies, there is a sign. It says, "Those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it." Obviously, I fully zoomed into this picture because I don't want you guys to see anything on accident, but it is a gut-wrenching scene of not just humans, but animals too. And a parrot that perches on a wall and looks around in confusion. So here is the final song that echoed into the forest after everyone drank the Kool-Aid. Hello, hello, my fellow darkness lovers. Alright, we got a scary story today. And as you guys know, I like stories with evidence. So today's story is the true story of a family that moved into a house in Pinhold, Canada. The family has been having very strange occurrences. Shadow people, whispers in the night, a pentagram in their basement, and deep gashes all over their back. They will randomly appear at all hours of the night. And this demon particularly likes to target the wife. So the family seeks out a paranormal investigator, and they fall upon Rona Anderson. She is an investigator, but also a psychic. She hops in the car and drives all the way to Pinhold. She immediately picks up on the house's very evil past. 2 men used to live there, and they would torture animals. They would also do rituals and summon demons. They were very much into black magic and hurting others. Rona cautiously steps into the basement and begins to explore. She hears the wife's husband, Ben, frantically yell, "Guys, come here, come here!" He had 2 new voicemails, but his phone never rang. Instantly, everyone felt fear. They knew that whatever had left those voicemails had something to do with this entity. The timing was strange, the fact that it didn't ring was so strange. So, they all gathered around and played the voicemail. This is what was captured.
You have 2 saved messages. First code for message.
This is Jacob's last video. Jacob would swim in whirlpools and upload it to YouTube. His friend David would film him. This is absolutely extremely dangerous because these whirlpools are very powerful currents that suck everything to the floor. and getting caught in that current is a death sentence. On this day, they noticed the whirlpool was way stronger than it usually was. It was bigger, it was faster, and it was sucking him in. And you could hear in the video his friend David was panicking. He was like, I think we got enough footage, you should probably get out.
I reckon you got enough then. You got enough?
But Jacob wanted more clips. So he throws on his fins and decides to get some underwater footage. Jacob goes under and immediately gets pulled down. He begins to fight the whipping current, but it is too powerful. As he falls down deeper and deeper, he becomes exhausted. And he is fighting the desperate urge for oxygen. As Jacob looked up to see just how far he had drifted, he panicked. And eventually, he would take in a gulp of water. He felt a sharp pain in his chest, and then everything would turn black. David was still filming, and after a few minutes, he started to panic. He started running around the pier, looking over the edge, trying to spot Jacob. And eventually, he would run to the side, look down, and saw him at the bottom, lying motionless. This is a very sad story, and really all Jacob wanted to do was get nice footage. It gave him joy to get cool footage and then post it for his viewers, so he was doing what he loved. So yeah, this story makes me really sad. But it's okay. Anyway, sorry to leave on a sad note. My eyes are teared up.